You are now listening to Soundspace, the podcast where we interview experts and professionals in the space of sound.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Soundspace. I am joined once again with my amazing co-host, Anthony Cacci. How are you, my friend?
I'm great, man. How's it going?
Very good. Very excited for today's episode. We have a doozy of a guest. We have someone who has inspired me a lot. Jacob Lacroix-Cardinal will be interviewed today on Soundspace. And let me just introduce this amazing engineer that we have with us today. Jacob is a recording, mixing, and mastering engineer from Cornwall, Ontario, who currently resides in Montreal, Quebec. In 2013 through 2014, he attended Algonquin College's Music Industry Art program and was a standout student and engineer from the get-go. He is best known for being the house engineer at Planet Studios for 5 years, where he has recorded hundreds of projects. These include vocalists, bands, and voiceovers. He has also mixed for many styles of music, such as jazz, hip-hop, rock, alternative, pop, and many more. At Planet Studios, he has recorded and worked with many mainstream artists. These include Charlie Puth, Young M.A., AP Ferg, Rosalía, Half Moon Run, and Corneille. He has also won a Juno for his work with Half Moon Run, and now he works as a successful freelance audio engineer. Let's give a big warm welcome to Jacob Lacroix-Cardinal. How are you, Jacob?
What's up, man? I'm good. How are you guys?
Very good. Very happy to have you on.
Yes, very happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes. For sure. It's a pleasure. Let's really start with the beginning with you, because I think that the story and what you have built from your career right now needs to be gone over in detail. So I really want to start with you by knowing what was your childhood like, and then when did audio become of importance to you throughout your youth?
I would say, so I used to be in a metal band back in high school. So that's kind of how the whole thing started. I was a vocalist for a metal band, and for a long while, I was recording my own vocals for the records. That's kind of how it piqued the interest. Back then, I was using, I think, Logic, actually, believe it or not. And so that piqued the interest, and that made me want to study audio, because I was like, man, doing music is fun. I think there's a career in this. So I went to Algonquin kind of like on a whim. I was just like, guys, Mom and Dad, I'm going to go to Algonquin. I'm going to study music. And they were really down for it. So I went and did the program. And then continued my band for a little while. Had a hard time finding work in Ottawa because, let's be honest, Ottawa doesn't have the music scene that Montreal does, unfortunately. And so I moved to Montreal fairly quickly, about after a year of graduating from college at Music Industry Arts, which, by the way, Jaian also attended.
A year after. We missed each other by a year.
A year after. A year after. And right after that, I think I worked in Ottawa for about a year trying to find work, and man, it was hard. Ottawa's not really bumping like Montreal. So I moved out here, found a job at Planet. Like, first, I brought my CV to the studio, and somebody quit like at the perfect time. So I was like right in. I was interning. I interned for probably about a period of 2 months, just kind of shadowing the guys, seeing what they were doing, seeing what the sessions were like. And, those guys, they all quit, man. And then I was alone, like being basically the head honcho of the studio for quite a while. And,
for a long time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think I was alone for almost a year, and probably I went through like a couple of assistants back then, but assistants come and go, and the real ones stay around. So it's like I was alone for a good amount of time, built my experience, became kind of like the guy at Planet. I built my reputation off that, and then about what is it now? 4 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, I quit Planet as the house engineer and rented a studio here in the same building to do my freelance work. So it's cool, man. I'm still in the same area with the same people. I know the boss. We're on good terms, and it's cool, man.
Yeah, home base.
That's kind of
Planet.
like the home base. Yeah, that's kind of my history. It's very brief. Not too much went around, but no, it's I got to work on a lot of cool projects in my time at Planet.
Absolutely, I would say that definitely it's brief in the sense that you didn't run around in many different places, but the running that you did was immense at Planet. The amount of work, all the credits that we go over. If we look at your site, there are all these fantastic projects that you've been a part of. So I mean, I definitely want to get into those, but also prior to that, your education set you up for all of this. So let's maybe talk about your experience at Algonquin College. What were the classes like back then for you? Obviously, the program has immensely changed since then, but like take us through maybe a semester by semester breakdown and everything that you learned from that college degree.
That's a very good question. Look, I mean, I had an amazing time in college. The professors were, real dudes, doing work in the music industry. And, I think the first semester was a little more focused on the basics. Second semester was a little bit more broad knowledge. Third semester was a little bit more focused. And I would say I always, in music industry arts, the program at Algonquin, they teach kind of a broad kind of spectrum of the music industry. So you have a little bit of music business, you have a little bit of studio, you have a bit of live, you have a bit of digital audio, computers, blah, blah, blah. You have all this kind of stuff. And kind of right from the get-go, I was always the first dude at the console, looking to do things. I had a professor, Wayne Hawthorne, who's amazing professor. I would commend my success to that guy because he was always the dude that kind of pushed me a little bit. And so during all the practical classes, I was always at the console. He was always encouraging me. He even got me gigs back in Ottawa too, like live gigs and stuff like that. And man, I mean, it was kind of a broad program, but I always kind of focused in studio. And kind of when I left there, I knew I needed to be working in an actual studio, which came to happen not very long after.
Absolutely. So it basically confirmed to you that the place that you belong in the music industry is a studio. You knew that from the classes is what I'm getting at. From you, basically.
Pretty much, because I mean, a lot of people, they took that class, and some people are working, like some people in my year are working, at labels, or they're producing, they're creating music, writing music, composing, whatever. And for me, it was always studio. And to be honest, I think I kind of always had that drive to be a studio person from the get-go before I even took the program, because it's something I like. I like recording people and kind of guiding them through their trajectory to the final record. I like that. I enjoy that a lot. And so, I kind of always took to that.
That's great, man. You knew exactly what you wanted right from the start, and not many people can say that for sure.
Yeah, and even like being in a studio, being in college kind of at least gave me a good, overview of the rest of the industry, which maybe, I don't know, for sure, but probably helped me in my development in the studio. I understand a little bit about the business. I understand a little bit about this, a little bit about that. So, I would say it was very, very helpful. Yeah.
Do you still make music though? Or it's just studio work right now?
No, it's just studio work. So my band, we kind of stopped making music in probably the year after MIA, because I was in my band throughout college. I was in my band, and then after I graduated and I moved to the West Island of Montreal, because I knew it was a transition towards Montreal and working here. So I moved to the West Island, and we were still kind of finishing our last record. And once it finished, we never performed that record live, because like the guitarist moved to Toronto. Two guys still lived in Ottawa. One guy still lived in Cornwall, where I'm from, which is where the band was formed originally. And I was in Montreal, so it was very hard to like coordinate everybody. And we kind of we put out the record. We had like a minimum of success with the record because it was a good record. And then we kind of went our separate ways. And so I don't still do music. I do sing, and occasionally I'll help artists with their vocals and, melodies and top lines and, stuff like that. But I don't actually play any instruments.
Maybe going back to your band, let's maybe detail it a bit more. What kind of music did you guys make? And, what was your experience? I know that you said that the second record, the final record that you guys did never saw a stage, but did you guys do a lot of shows? Did you play a Maverick? What was the lowdown?
Yeah, we did. So when my band was called Through Lucid Eyes, this is probably close to 10 years ago now. And we were a metal band, like a metalcore band. Like, let's say influences draw from maybe North Lane or like, God knows, whatever. But so we were kind of a metalcore / gent, as the kids call it. And I was the vocalist. I was screaming and singing.
You were screaming? Okay, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, I was screaming and singing. And man,
maybe later you can give a sample.
Man, just go listen to the record. It's really sick. Like I'm very proud of that record.
It is good.
Yeah, I'm super, super proud of that record. My performance, the band's performance, it was just really sick, and it came together really nice. And like, yeah, we played quite a few shows before that last record. We put out like an EP with like maybe 6 songs. I can check right now, actually, on the Spotify. Let me check 1 second. Yeah, our EP has 7 songs, which didn't get very much traction, but those are the songs we did live. And we had, back in my band days, we had features from Jesse Cash of Era. We had a feature in the record previous to that EP. We had a feature from JT Cavey, who's the singer for Era now, who's screaming for Era now. We had Carlo Knopfel, who is the vocalist for, let me see if I can remember the name, Breakdown of Sanity, I think. And Ryan Strain, who was a feature he was a YouTube vocalist for a little while. He was really dope. So we did that EP, and that's what we played live. And, it was cool. Like, a lot of people came out to our shows, and then we did a release show for that EP. And I think it was a small club in Cornwall. And I think we pulled 300 or 350 people there. And it's like a small club, bro. So That was really full. Yeah, it was really awesome. Dope. It was a really, really dope experience. I miss playing live. I think that was probably some of the funnest times of my life. And then we put out that new EP, which we worked really hard to make. And, some of the songs, like one of the songs has the sounds, it's not that many numbers, but 61,000 plays on Spotify is decent for a band that doesn't actually make music anymore. Yeah, that's pretty decent.
Yeah.
So we put that out. We put that record out, and we haven't done anything since, which is a shame, but necessary because we're doing our own things. Ryan, the guitarist, he's actually producing in Toronto right now. He's making really great records out there. He's a wicked guitar player.
Nice. Other than maybe being able to help artists with their melodies, vocals, and everything, what other experience does being in a band and being in a metal band specifically help you as an engineer that maybe someone who's never been in a metal band before wouldn't have?
I would say it's not specific to a metal band. I would say it's probably specific to being any performer. Like, as soon as you get up in front of a stage, you have an understanding of how people react to your music and stuff like that. And I think
definitely
the benefit of me having been in a band maybe gives me a little bit of an edge because I guess I would know how to maybe coach people in their live settings and how to be comfortable with themselves. And even something as simple as vocal warm-ups before a show. People ask me before they do shows, what should I do? Do I warm up? Do I, drink beer? Like whatever. And man, let me tell you, my routine before the show was have 1 beer to get a little bit loose and just do vocal warm-ups in my car. I just sat in my car and did vocal warm-ups. And I've given people that secret, pretty recently. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it gives me a huge edge because it's a different vibe. Like I don't work in metal music, I work in pop and Latin pop and indie. I work in indie mostly when I'm doing recording sessions. It's mostly indie music. So it's like, I wouldn't say I have like the holy grail of
it's a different mindset.
Knowledge. Yeah, I don't have the holy grail of knowledge for performers, but I would say I have a little bit of experience and maybe I can help them, give them a couple tips, and that's about it.
Right. Okay, very cool. Let's move maybe more to your career now, because we did go over Algonquin College and what has occurred there. I know you gave us a brief explanation, but I really want to know because let's give it context for some people. When I mentioned studios a studio that I worked at, it was Planet. I wanted to keep this for this specific episode for people to know. So I did. I was an assistant with Jacob for a while, so I do know the story. But I want to go into the detail of how you went from intern to assistant to house engineer, because the thing is, Jacob, you did this for a very, very long time, and that's extremely rare. And I think that you've learned valuable lessons through that. And for someone who really wants to do the studio life, I think these are things that need to be dove in deep into. So let's maybe start from intern to assistant. What was that like? How often were you at the studio? What was your day-to-day like? Let's really get into the detail of all of that.
So that's a very good question. So from the beginning, what happened was I was still living in the West Island when I got the internship at Planet. I was still working. I was still working part-time. Yeah, I was still working part-time at a pub. I was just cooking. So basically, I always had a restaurant background. So I worked in restaurants for like pretty much all my life. And then I got this internship at Planet after graduating college. And so I was working full-time at this restaurant cooking. And on my off days, like let's say I was off on a Thursday and Friday, I would spend that entire day at the studio. I'd drive from the West Island Island to
That's
Montreal.
quite a drive.
Yeah, it's maybe an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
I drive an hour, come to the studio, spend the whole day with the assistants that were here at the time. And then on the days that I was working, maybe a half day, let's say I had an opening shift at the restaurant, I'd work from 8 to 2 or something. I would leave the restaurant directly. Not even shower, bro. Stinky man. Just like leaving this restaurant and going straight to the studio to be around the other assistants and help them do stuff. And, fun fact, one of my first intern sessions was a jazz record that was getting recorded during Jazz Fest by an artist named Robbie Botos, who is an incredible keyboard player. And he won a Juno for that record. So my first intern session was a Juno winning record, which is a fun fact. Obviously, I was chilling by the coffee machine half the time, serving coffees to these dudes, but like it was cool, man. And Jaian, you would know the engineer who did that session. It was Nick.
Really, Nick did that. Huh.
Nick Roberge. Yeah, Nick Roberge, who works next door. He came over and did that session, and that damn record won a Juno, man.
Yeah, and it won a Juno. That's fantastic. Okay, and then so what other sessions?
Yeah, so my transition from I'll go back to your question. I'll try and stay relatable here, or stay related to the question. I mean, so I was an intern for, I would say, maybe a month, a very short period interning, because the guys I started interning under quit very quickly because they were off doing their own things. The guy who trained me, Marc-Antoine, he is doing live shit now. Like he's been doing live sound for a little while. So he was already kind of stepping into that territory when I started. And so he quit, and I was kind of like, I was alone with another guy for a little bit, like maybe a month, and then he quit. So my transition from intern to assistant kind of came forcefully in a way because everybody left. So I had no choice. I had to start doing the sessions, and it's like, you kind of have to figure it out. It was a little bit rock and roll, you know. It was like the owner of the studio calling me up and saying, hey, there's a full band tomorrow at 4 p.m. And I've probably at that point never recorded a full band before. So I was like, oh shit, okay. So I'd go in 4 hours early to make sure everything worked. Yeah, you know, that was the transition. And then from that, the funny thing is the transition from intern to assistant, kind of like it was that same transition was kind of also the same transition from intern to engineer, because I didn't serve as an assistant for an extended period of time. It was like from intern to assistant, I was also engineering at that time. So there was no fine line. There was no progression naturally. It was just finish interning and then start recording stuff, but also, assist the owner or assist other engineers coming into the studio. So it was kind of I was kind of thrown into the fire a little bit.
That must have been fun.
Right. And maybe can you describe that feeling of being thrown into the fire? Because I know that feeling of being thrown into the fire, but can you vocalize that to someone who's never been in the fire and who wants to maybe work in the studio? What's the fire like?
Let me tell you, you gotta have a constitution of steel. I don't know if constitution is the right word, but you have to be tough, man. You gotta have balls. You gotta be thick-skinned, because that's a heavy burden to take on so early. In my position anyways. Luckily, I grew up in the restaurant industry, so I had a pretty thick skin to begin with. But within a month of working in a studio, I was already responsible for running the thing. So it was intense. I would say any advice I have for somebody who wants to get into the studio industry is have thick skin, man. Be able to work long hours and dedicate pretty much your entire life.
And were there ever moments where you were questioning yourself, why am I doing this? Or it was fully...
I would say I was 120% into it from the get-go.
Yeah, that's what you need.
Let me put it into perspective. So I had a girlfriend when I moved to Montreal, and within no hate to my ex, she was great, she was awesome, but I was so focused on my work that the relationship didn't work out, because I was just 130%, it was I was here for 15 hours a day every day of the week, and that was life, and I was cool with it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think anytime you want to get into the studio business, man, you got to be ready to sacrifice a lot. And that sounds really negative, but what I'm basically saying is you have to, I don't know, this has to really be a passion for you. You can't just go in because you think making records is going to make you billions of dollars, or because you want to be the next whoever the big producer engineer is now. You can't come into it thinking you want to be that guy. You got to come into it thinking, I want to work hard and make great music. And that's kind of the background I came from. I didn't really care about what happened in my life. I was just man, I'm in this. I'm going to move forward no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as someone who was your assistant, I can really say that attitude has rubbed off on me so much. You know, it's almost like a what would Jacob do when I'm in like situations. Sometimes I'm like, what would Jacob do? You know, should I go out with my friends tonight or should I work on this client? I'm staying in. You know. I also want to go back to you said that what you described earlier was a bit negative to the studio, you know, sacrificing all this time.
Yeah, it sounds, yeah. What I'm saying sounds really negative. Like, you know, people are going to listen to this and be like, oh, geez, like he suffered to be where he is today. But it's not true. If you're passionate about studio life and, you know, the music industry, it's not that hard, because no matter what, whether you're at home or you're at the studio, you're dedicated to music. You're always doing something on your laptop. You know, you're always making music or mixing something. Like it's just all your focus becomes the studio. And I think it's a positive thing for the right people. I think the wrong people, you know, they don't necessarily survive in the day-to-day studio life because it's hard. You have to make sacrifices, but at the same time, if you're passionate like I am and like you are, Jaian, like about the studio life and about the industry, it's no problem. Like I had a lot of fun here. Like I don't regret a single moment at the studio.
Absolutely not. No, I'm with you on that 100%. As someone who's been literally in that facility, I know exactly what you mean. But my question would be, and I think you kind of answered it already, but if there's any other point you want to touch on the positives of being that dedicated and being an engineer at that studio, outside of what you've sacrificed, what did you gain? Like what's the upside of this for you?
Oh man, like just tons of experience. Customer, you know, I want to say customer service, but I wouldn't say it's customer service. It's just knowing how to be around clients. You know, spending 5 years in a studio, you're around really good people all the time. Really great clients all the time. You know, I wouldn't have the reputation I have now if it wasn't for Planet. And I think that's what it gave me. It gave me the stepping stone to be successful in my solo career. If, you know, that's kind of the only way to put it. You know, when you come to a studio, a commercial studio, and you work as an intern or an assistant or an engineer, you know, basically that's always, unless you manage to stay there forever, that it's your stepping stone to your own clientele and your stepping stone to your own business, your own career. That's kind of the way I see it.
Absolutely.
Well, you kind of touched on it. Like, how was your day-to-day like at Planet Studios?
Day-to-day, let me tell you. So, day-to-day, wake up I was always here at 9, no matter what was going on. If there wasn't, you know, if there was a session at 4 p.m., I wouldn't care. I'd come in at 9 anyways, because I just liked spending time here. So I would, you know, get up in the morning, have a coffee at home quick, take a shower so I don't smell bad, come to the studio, and then just chill here, man. I would like do stuff. I would like organize things. I would like clean up, you know, cables or racks or test stuff that maybe didn't work the session prior to that one. So I was just like, I was always doing something. I was there pretty much all the time. My day-to-day is just one long day for 5 years. You know, there's kind of no way around it. I was just there all the time forever, basically. Wow. Yeah, that's like have coffee, lots of coffee. Let me tell you, that's the secret. Lots of coffee.
I drank so much coffee at that studio.
Yeah, lots of coffee, and like me, I enjoy having a beer at the end of the day. So like when I would finish a session at like, let's say, you know, 10 p.m. before the dépanneurs in Montreal close, cross the street, get a 6-pack, have a couple beers while you wrap some cables, while you chill out with the other assistants. You know, that was my day-to-day life. I would do that every day, and it was great, man.
That's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, like to me, those were the funnest times when it was just like me, you, and Juan, which will be a guest very soon. The three of us would just, you know, you would text the group chat, oh, who wants to go grab us, go grab me a beer, you know? Someone goes to grab me a beer.
And I would just, I was the OG, so I would just shoot them my debit card and be like, guys, let's go get some, whatever, some Coors Lights, like whatever. I don't even care what it is, as long as we get to have a beer in as a group, as a, you know, end of day celebration. We made it through today. Yeah, exactly. As a family, I couldn't put it better. Yeah, as a family.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's go down the line here. I mentioned many artists that you worked with at the beginning, but on what specific role that you had. I think I really want to go down these fantastic artists because these are artists that our listeners. If you haven't listened to them, I don't know who you are because they're very popular.
So cool.
Yes, very much so. Let's start with Charlie Puth. What song did you record? What was your role? Let's get into the details of that. And if you want to get a little technical, audio nerdy too, I wouldn't mind personally, of course.
Yeah, well, so that day, what happened is Dan, the studio owner, he called me, I think maybe at 11 a.m. that day, said, hey, I have this artist from Atlantic Records coming through the studio at, maybe it was 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. I was like, oh, shit, nice. Okay, Atlantic Records, this is going to be dope. And he said, I'm going to forward you an email. I was like, okay, cool. So I made my way to the studio, check my email. I see like an email from the label saying like, okay, here's what Charlie's going to need. Charlie. I was like, Charlie on Atlantic. I look up at Atlantic Records. I look it up. I see, okay, there's 2 artists signed that have the name Charlie. There's Charlie XCX and there's Charlie Puth. I was like, oh shit, which one is it?
Either one, it's insane.
Yeah, either one is dope. But like, so I was just, let me tell you, I was stressed for like 4 hours waiting for this guy to come. I was like, man, guy or girl, it could have been, either at that point. But so I'm waiting around. I don't set up anything because I don't know what he needs. I don't know what, what the setup is. So I was just like, let me make the studio nice and clean, get some candles, get the vibe, whatever. And then I get a ring at the doorbell. Back then, Jaian, you don't remember, but that doorbell was actually a buzzer. So the dude would press the doorbell and the phone would ring. That's like old school days. And
oh man, okay.
So I go answer the door. I'm like, holy shit, it's Charlie Puth. And then guy walks in, super nice guy, introduces himself. Hey man, I'm Charlie. I was like, hi, I'm Jacob. And the guy comes in. We talk a little bit. He brought like his Apollo. He brought like his own laptop. He brought his Apollo. He brought everything. Like I basically almost didn't need to do anything. He brought all his shit because he already had worked on the prod. The song that he was working on was How Long, which was a huge hit. How long has this been going on? So that one. He comes in, he has his Apollo, he has his laptop, he sets up his stuff. I plug him into the speaker as I get everything ready. And then he's like, okay, yeah, I usually record with a U47 and through 1073 and a 1176. So I'm like, okay, cool. We have all that stuff. So I set it up, I get it ready for him. He's like, hey, do you mind just like taking a sec and just like sound checking my vocal? I was like, oh shit, nice. So I sit down in the chair. I get behind his Pro Tools rig with his laptop and he's singing like, 2 feet away from me. And, it sounds exactly like the records. The guy's singing into the mic. It's going through the gear, whatever. And, levels were good right from the get-go. I didn't really have to do anything. And it just, like, it sounded incredible right off the bat. And that was pretty much it. Like, I did this setup. I did this sound check. And then he kind of worked on the thing the whole time. And I was just there if he needed anything. It wasn't anything fancy. It's not like I spent 8 hours recording him or anything like that. He had his stuff. But I sound checked the vocal. I got it ready. He did his thing. And then probably, 4 hours later, he finished recording it. Didn't take very long. And he invites me in. He's like, hey, man, you want to come listen to this? I was like, dude, yes. So I walked in, go listen to the song. He plays it back to me, his bodyguard, and his manager. And we're just listening to it. We're like, dude, this is a hit. And it definitely was a hit. Because he left that night super thankful. Thanks, dude. Yeah, he took my name and number down and stuff. Like, it was a very cool experience. Yeah.
Wow.
I would have completely lost my mind. If Charlie
I almost did. Yeah, I think when he left, I just about shit myself when he left. I think I just like.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's definitely the biggest artist I've worked with.
I mean, I was freaking out like when I was researching you a bit, and I saw that you recorded.
Maybe should I say that one for the last one?
Yeah, Charlie Puth probably should have been saved for last, but it's all good. Anyways, just like researching you and finding out that you recorded Charlie Puth, How Long? I remember listening to that song on repeat, constantly playing that song when I would DJ at parties and stuff. Now knowing that you did that, I was freaking out, and I can only imagine how you felt.
Man, so the funny thing is, people have this misconception that I spent 8 hours in studio with the guy. It's not true. I won't cap. Like, no cap. I think I spent maybe 25 minutes in the studio with him, setting up his mic, getting everything ready, making sure the speakers worked, everything was cool. Okay, right. Your vocal sounds good. I recorded a little snippet, and then I played it back for him. He's like, yeah, sounds great. Cool. And then I let him do his thing, because he records himself, bro. He engineers himself. He does everything himself. He produces, he mixes, he does everything himself. So basically, I set it up for him, did a little sound check, and then played it back for him. He's like, okay, it's great. And then I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to let you do your thing because I know you work by yourself. I'm going to let you do your thing. If you need anything, I'm just outside. And I sat for 3 hours, 4 hours with his bodyguard, just like shooting the shit, just like chilling. Same. And then anytime he needed something, he would come out, ask me for something. I'd go in, do it for him. No problem. Like it was a very smooth session because the guy, he does everything himself. So I can't fully take the credit for engineering him, but in theory I did. So that's why it's in my portfolio.
Wow.
And I went to get him Schwartz. And if Charlie, if ever you listen to this, I hope one day you do, you ate my Schwartz sandwich, bro.
Oh.
I went and got him Schwartz. So I drove. Yeah. So I went and got Schwartz for him, myself, and the bodyguard because they were hungry. And they're like, dude, Charlie's like, bro, I heard of this spot in Montreal, Schwartz, they got the best smoked meat, whatever. I was like, yeah, it's great. It's not that far from here. So I had my car, drove there, got 2 smoked meat sandwiches and 1 turkey because the bodyguard wanted a turkey. So I was like, okay, cool. Get 3 sandwiches, bring it back to the studio. I get some fries at Jaian. You remember the kind of bistro at the corner there, Jojo's? Remember that place?
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
I got like some nice greasy fries for the guys, some nice Canadian greasy fries. Bring it to them, and then I go like do some things, whatever. Come back, Charlie ate my sandwich.
No.
And so I had to just eat like I ate the scraps of fries. I was like, okay, it's cool. If Charlie wanted an extra sandwich, bro, it's all good. He can have mine. Because I was just like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But that's a funny story for anybody listening.
That's such a funny story.
Yeah. If anybody listens to this and they're like, wow, I wonder what the experience was with Charlie Puth. It was great, but he ate my sandwich.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I that's fantastic.
I never told you this, Jaian? I never told you this?
No, I'm listening. I'm hearing this live on the recording right now.
Bro, that shit, man, that's the funniest story of my career, bro.
Oh, that's so good.
That is too funny.
That's so good. Oh man.
I think my next biggest artist I think I've ever worked with was it's between 2, I would say. It would be between Rosalía. Well, no, Rosalía is definitely the next biggest artist I've worked with. Rosalía is
I would say
huge.
so.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I spent 2 days in studio with her. I spent 2 days in studio with her over a weekend when she was performing at Osheaga. I think she was headlining at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
what year was this?
this was, I think, 2019.
Yeah.
Right before like the whole pandemic thing.
Yeah, I actually saw her at Osheaga.
Yeah, so she was performing at Osheaga, let's say on maybe Sunday, and she came on Friday, for example, and she spent like 2 days, Friday, Saturday at the studio, or maybe she was performing the night of the Saturday, maybe, or the night of the Sunday, and she came Saturday, Sunday. Anyways, all this math, whatever. But she came for 2 days, and we did a song called, it's called Yuroke. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Huge song. The song is about, as far as I remember, she explained to me what the song is about. It's, because obviously I don't speak Spanish, but it's about this girl who's madly in love with a guy who's a criminal, and he gets arrested. And the whole premise of the song is she's so desperate to be there with him because she's in love with him that she does disgusting things to try and get to prison with him, and that's what the whole song is about. So I think it's a Spanish folktale, if anything. And yeah, so we spent 2 days in studio. We did that with the producer is El Guincho. Not sure what his actual name is, but El Guincho is a producer who did that song, and absolute genius. Yeah, we spent 2 days in studio. We did vocals. He did some stuff like some claps and stuff like that. So I recorded all that. Yeah. Great song. I remember when that song came out let me see when it came out. I have my YouTube open here.
Go ahead.
I made her breakfast, by the way. Another funny story. I'll tell you that.
You're just feeding everyone.
Yeah. Rosalía, Yuroke. This came out in
January 2020, I think.
January 2020. Yeah, exactly. So this song, fantastic song. She put this song out, and I saw that it came out, and I listened to the first like 2 seconds. I was like, holy shit, this is the song I did with her. And obviously, the funny thing is, I didn't know Rosalía was Rosalía until like the second day.
Really?
Like I did the first session with her. The studio owner was like, oh yeah, you have this session with this artist. I think she's a big artist. You know, it's going to be upstairs, blah, blah, blah. You got to do this. I was like, okay, cool. I didn't know who Rosalía was beforehand, which shame on me because she's such a brilliant artist.
Yeah.
And we started doing this session, and I was like, man, this girl has it. Like, she's going to make waves. And she had already made waves before, and I just didn't catch the waves, bro. I didn't have my surfboard in the ocean. You know what I'm saying? So I did the 2 sessions. After that, I was like, shit, okay, I'm going to keep an eye out for this because when this comes out, it's going to slap. And then it did, bro. It came out in January. I was sitting at, I remember, Jaian, you know exactly where it is. I was sitting at the coffee table. And I saw that it had come out. And within 24 hours, it got 2 or 3 million views in 24 hours.
Wow.
And I was like, holy shit. Yeah, it definitely blew my mind.
That's fantastic. That's
so that was my experience with Rosalía. And more to expand on the breakfast situation, because I think this is worth mentioning because it's hilarious. What happened is she was, I think it was the second day, she was hungry. She wanted breakfast. And I was the engineer / like caretaker for this session because I was like the one-man wonder of the whole thing. And she wanted breakfast and she asked for eggs, the basic, like, can I just have can you just find like, a place to order like eggs and avocado, like something super simple. I was like, yeah, I got you. Couldn't find anywhere, bro. I drove all over the place. Couldn't find egg and avocado, like in a plate, like in a fancy thing. So what I ended up doing was, Jaian, you might remember there was a hot plate at the studio. So there's like this white hot plate that we used to plug in, and we had a pan. So I went and bought eggs, I bought butter, I bought an avocado.
Wow.
We had salt and pepper. I made her breakfast. I brought it upstairs. She was so thankful. She's like, wow, this looks amazing. I went all out, bro. I had like the parsley and shit, bro. It was nice. And I made her breakfast. We ordered her Mandy's salad later on. And she had a great time, man. And we had a great time. It was really dope. And I hope she comes back soon. And I would love to work with her again because she's just like, she's next level.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, she is an incredible artist.
Big ups.
Incredible artist.
Absolutely.
And the funny thing is, another little nugget of knowledge is she left for Osheaga, like she went to perform, and me and her producer El Guincho, we sat in the studio for an extra like 3-4 hours, and we were running her vocals. Jaian, you could relate because you'll nerd out to this, but we ran her vocals through a bunch of effects like the H3000. We ran her vocals through the 240 plate, the 140 plate.
Yeah.
Like we did a bunch of effects with her vocals with the producer, and I gave him all the like wet reverbs, like here.
Damn.
Take them, do what you want with them. And I hear those reverbs on the record, which is sick.
Wow. That's amazing.
For sure, we're going to touch
So
on
I know that, Jason Joshua mixed my reverbs, bro.
Okay.
If anybody knows who Jason Joshua is, I know, maybe you guys don't know who Jason Joshua is, but he's like the GOAT. He mixed like Despacito and all that shit.
Okay. Nice.
Wow. That's fantastic. That is, you're like passing the football over to like one of the biggest out there, So that's insane. It's great. Who should we jump to next? We still have 4 more that we mentioned earlier. Jacob.
Well, I could do like a quick. I have the doc open here. I could do a quick little run through of the other ones. I would say my next biggest one after Rosalía. Well, let's say Half Moon Run was actually the biggest. Because not necessarily that Half Moon Run is the biggest artist I've worked with, but Half Moon Run was definitely the biggest experience. Because Half Moon Run spent probably close to 2 months in studio.
Wow.
And so I spent 2 months with Half Moon Run, who not only is probably the greatest indie band of all time, in my opinion. I love those guys. They flew in an engineer from LA called Joe Ciccarelli, who did Alanis Morissette. Yeah, he did Morrissey. He did so many amazing records this guy did. And he was at Planet with me. I was his engineer. I was his assistant engineer, I guess. And I spent probably close to 2 months with these guys. They did a run of 2 weeks first, took a little break. Then they did a run of about 4 or 5 weeks. And then they did another run of 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. And we did God knows how many songs. But amazing experience. We got to spend every day with these guys. They were doing shows in Montreal afterwards. And we got tight. We spent so much time together. We got tight. And like their manager, Marie-Ève, was hitting me up with tickets. Like, oh, dude, the guys are performing at this place. Do you want to come? They would love to see you, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, shit, okay, nice. And I would go spend time with the guys. And we'd go to the shows and like hang out. It was awesome. We had some amazing experiences together. I would say that marked me for my life, and that was the record that won a Juno, and that's why I have a Juno, because I worked with those guys. Yeah,
that is so cool.
That's fantastic.
That's 2 months in studio with great people, and they won a Juno deservingly because that record was just absolutely slaps. Amazing record.
Absolutely. I do want to highlight when you got the Juno, I was there. I will remember the moment someone delivered it to you. You were outside in front of Planet. Sam delivered it to you, and you were just having a smoke, and you're like, "Oh, here you go." And you're like, "What's in the box?" And you just open it. And you're like, "That's my Juno." That was like such a
the guy texted me. I think he called me like 2 hours before coming, or like an hour before coming. He called me or texted me. He's like, "Hey, bro, I'm gonna come drop off the thing." I was like, "What do you mean the thing? What thing?" I knew I had won a Juno because we had talked about it, like me and him and the manager and stuff like that. I paid for the Juno because, unfortunately, let me make it very clear. The Junos, you have to buy your trophy unless you're the artist, which is very lame, but I get it because, obviously they have to make money too. And so I bought my Juno. I paid it to the manager of Half Moon Run. She paid for them. And so I was aware it was coming, but Sam texted me. He's like, dude, I'm going to come drop off the thing. I was like, what the hell are you talking about, man? And then the guy showed up at the front of the studio. I went out to meet him. I was having a cigarette, exactly like you said, Jaian. And the guy just gives me a box, like this huge box for like this trophy, like this massive box. I was like, what the hell is this, dude? And I opened the thing up. There's like this little sleek black case wrapped in like a bubble wrap. And I was like, oh shit, it's a fucking Juno, bro. And now I have a Juno in my apartment.
Yeah, that must be something fun to display, to show off.
I thought about bringing it to the studio and leaving it here, but like honestly, that's like my baby, bro. Like I don't want like somebody to like trip on it or like destroy it.
No. You gotta keep that for sure. Safe and secure.
I keep that shit at home, bro. I dust it like every 2 days. I just walk in with my Swiffer duster and I just kind of give it a little whiff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And then if I had to move down the line, so Half and Run, definitely craziest experience. Charlie Puth, biggest client for sure. Rosalía, probably the biggest client as well. They're both like, they're both amazing. Then I did a very short. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, sorry. Before we jump to any other artists, I do want to highlight. I want to know, because I've listened to many interviews with Joe Ciccarelli. Tell us what it was like to be in the same room as Joe Ciccarelli and working with Joe Ciccarelli, and what he was like. Like I really like this. Like has to be highlighted. We can't like not talk about this.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Let me say intimidating. This guy had massive success in his career, and let me tell you, like it was. I remember waking up the morning on a Sunday. I'd slept at the studio the night before because I got the place ready with Jordan, my good friend and co-engineer at the time at Planet. Mm-hmm. We got the studio ready for Half Moon Run. We got some stuff patched. We moved some shit around, whatever. Woke up that morning, got a text from the owner saying, hey, like the guys are going to load in tonight at 4 or whatever. And bro, instantly like stress, because I was like, shit, Half Moon Run, first of all, band I used to listen to when I was like, 14 or 15, their first record slapped. I love that shit. So I listened to it on repeat all the time. And not to mention, the guy who's producing their next record is Joe Ciccarelli. So I was like, damn, okay. And guy walks in, he's like intimidating, but the nicest human being ever. So just like super cool. We got to hang out a lot in studio, obviously. I mean, I don't know what much more to say. The guy was just inspiring. He did his thing, bro. Head down, working. Like Half Moon Run, we worked, 10, 11, 12 hours a day sometimes. 7 days a week or 5. Well, actually, no, 6 days a week. Let's be fair. They took Sundays off usually. And Ciccarelli, bro, the guy, I mean, I don't know how old he is. I don't want to assume he's old, but he must be at least late 40s, the guy. And he was spending, 10, 12 hours a day in studio with these guys for 6 days a week for 2 months. But this guy's a machine, and the record sounds incredible. And watching the guy work, the way he talks to the band, like the way he, I took a lot of inspiration in the way he talks to the band about his opinions and his points, because he never forces anything on anybody. He'll say, look guys, I think this is the way to do this, but if you think this is the best way, let's try it, and if it doesn't work, let's try my idea. And I thought that was a very respectable way to operate a session. I thought it was like the best way to please everybody. The guy has experience, bro. He's made, probably hundreds of records in his lifetime, or thousands even, and amazing records. So I definitely drew inspiration from, I would say my main inspiration I drew from Joe was the way he interacted with the clients. I thought it was amazing.
Absolutely. Hearing those stories, I mean, it's super inspiring, and the impact that he had on you, you have had on me, and you have had on Juan, and you have had on others around you. It's something that's like very contagious in a great way.
Yeah, he made me a better engineer for like 100%. Yes. He made me a better engineer. 100%. And you know what? I emailed him when we won the Juno, and he was happy I reached out. And like, I feel like if ever I go to LA, I'm going to hit this guy up. I'm going to say, Joe, I would love to grab a coffee and catch up. And I'm sure he would say yes. He's that nice of a human being. No matter how busy he is, I think if I hit him up, he would be like, dude, let's get together. Let's have a coffee. Let's have a gin. Let's have a beer, whatever. Let's get together. He's that kind of human being. He's just like the best. Although he did not like winter in Canada. I will say that.
Who does?
The guy, the guy lives in LA. The guy lives in LA, bro. It's sunny, it's nice all the time. And the guy came to Montreal, and it was like he came at the worst time, bro. It was like late January, bro. It was like snowing and icy and shitty. I used to park his car for him because I was like, damn, bro, like if you walk on ice and you fucking eat shit, bro, that's gonna suck. So he would pull up to the front of the studio and he'd come in, I'd let him in, I'd make him a coffee real quick, and then I'd hop in his car and go park it in the back because I was like, damn, bro, this guy's gonna get stuck in the snow, he's gonna hate his life. So yeah, it was interesting for him to be in Canada, I think.
Yeah, I bet.
Absolutely. So maybe next artist, which one would you say is your next biggest one out of the three remaining?
I would say
AP Ferg.
Yeah, I don't want to take too much time on this because we spent a lot of time on my clients.
We'll ask three. Yeah,
I'm gonna breeze through these. So I'm gonna start with actually Corneille, believe it or not, because Corneille, that's my guy, bro. That's my G. So that used to be Dan's session. Corneille is a very popular Quebec and French artist. He does like R&B, kind of pop vibes, and I worked with him for a very long time. He's a really big deal in the French community, and this guy's the nicest human being. He brings his wife to the studio, like it's all vibes. And I don't even know how many records I've done with this guy, like maybe 3 or 4 records at this point. I don't even know. And amazing human being. Guy shows up prepared. We sit down. The workflow is insane. Jaian, you must have saw me work with Corneille once.
Yes, you were an octopus on the Pro Tools rig. It was stupid. It was stupid. I
had arms and fucking fingers, bro, growing from places you wouldn't imagine, bro. I was like doing everything all the time because his workflow is so efficient and so quick that any engineer could sit in the seat, even if you've been an engineer for 20 years and you don't know how to run Pro Tools, man, you're gonna shit the bed and you're gonna burn in flames. But like I spent enough time with him that I got very good at it, and we spent probably 2-3 years working together because of that. Because he has a workflow very specific. He likes to work on certain sections at a time. So it's like, okay, let's record the lead vocal. Let's record the lead vocal 10 or 15 times. I'm gonna come in. We're gonna comp it. Comping, I mean compiling or whatever the abbreviation is. Meaning like let's grab the best words from all these sentences and make it into one dreamy take. So we do that, and then he's like, okay, I'm gonna go back in, I'm gonna double it, okay, I'm gonna triple it, okay, I'm gonna harmonize it, okay, let's double that, okay, let's triple that, okay, I'm gonna do another harmony, okay, let's double that, okay, let's triple that, okay, I'm gonna do a third harmony, I didn't like that actually, can you cut the second half, let's just punch in the second half. Like it's just that shit for like 8 hours or 4 or 5 hours, and you gotta be quick, bro. This guy works, he knows what he wants, and I appreciate that. Guys are God.
Absolutely.
I love Corneille.
Definitely.
If you're listening to this, bro, I love you.
Yeah, and he is a fellow podcaster as well. He did a podcast
also, it's called Amour Suprême. Beautiful podcast.
Yeah, go
amazing.
check it out. Yeah. Very great conversation with other artists.
My next move, I'll move quickly through these. Young M.A. was fantastic because Young M.A., obviously dope rapper. She came in on, it might have been any day of the week, I don't remember, but she came in at night, like 8 p.m. session or whatever. Okay. And I knew it was Young M.A. There was no surprise. I knew it was her, so I was like, okay, sick. So I got the place set up, I got it ready, I made everything nice, and she came in around 8. She did 2 songs in. So one of her songs, let me just see. I need to validate this. But Young M.A., Smooth Criminal, we did that track. 2 million plays. And this came out on a record that she did called History in the Making. And I did, I think, 2 songs on this. I did Smooth Criminal and I did... I can't remember the other one. I did 2. And, I'm like, oh yeah, bro, that shit's hard. So anyways... She comes in at 8. She bangs out these two songs in like maybe an hour and a half. And we got her manager, Reem, behind me. Her manager, Reem, and her other rapper friend. I'm so sorry, I can't remember his name. But we were just chilling, and she was rapping, just tearing that shit up, bro. It was amazing. And she did maybe 2 takes of each song. And it was like, that was it. And we just picked take 2. Like, there was no comping. It was just like, she did a 1 take of the whole song. She was like, I think I could do it better. She did it again. Okay, sick. That was done.
That's incredible.
And then she came in, she chilled. I just did a rough mix. And bro, I think we did maybe 2 hours of actual recording. And then they fell asleep so she probably came at like 8. We chilled for a little while. got things set up, did a little, we tried a couple things, whatever. Probably started seriously recording at like 9 or 10 even. And then after a couple hours, they just like, they checked out on the couch, bro. Everybody fell asleep. And I was just rough mixing until like 4 in the morning. I was like, bro, I got to make this nice. And I just rough mixed Young M.A. until like 4 in the morning. And then they got up, they were hearing me like bounce the last mix, and they kind of woke up and they were just vibing. Then they left. It was like super nice. Reem was like, bro, thank you so much for your work. A guy was super cool. They left, sent them the rough mixes, and that was that, So Young M.A. was like a very quick, like one-time thing. And the same thing with AP Ferg. AP Ferg was like, guy showed up, like super OG, bro. The guy showed up at like 2 p.m. on a, Thursday or something to come work. He showed up at 2, he left at 6. Like he did a 4-hour session. We did 2 songs. We did a feature. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. I hope I don't get sued for this. But he did a verse for, basically there was a song called Hips, which I'm not sure who it's featuring, but he did a song called Hips, and there was a feature on it. It was Nicki Minaj on the second verse, and Nicki, he wasn't sure if Nicki was going to hop on it for real. So he did a verse just in case. He did a second verse just in case. So we did that second verse in like no time, like not even an hour. Took a little break. He had some food. And then we did another track called, what was it called? Let me see. Floor Seats. Song was called Floor Seats. Dope song. Okay. I recorded the chorus for that. And it was just the chorus. Basically, he came for like a quick 4-hour session, and he had like a couple songs to finish up, like little things to patch up. And so we did that session. It went super well. There was these dudes downstairs recording who recognized him as he walked out, and they chased him outside. Oh my! It was like really awkward. And biggest bodyguard I've ever seen in my life. This guy T Nice, bro, jacked, bro. This guy, super dope dude, nicest guy. I hope to see those guys again. I remember while we were working, T Nice was like, "Yo, Ferg, we should bring this guy back to the studio in New York," because Ferg was building his studio in his house in New York, and I was like, "Oh shit, this guy's gonna fly me out or whatever." It never happened. I don't want to assume anything, but they were talking about it. I was like, "Damn, bro, that would be sick." So we got along super well, man. Like these guys, like we had a really good time. They did 2 bops at the studio. It was super sick.
That's nice. That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So,
and I would say the other underrated one that I didn't put in my portfolio because I didn't actually really do anything. Okay. Was Migos. They came to the studio for
no way.
About I did want to mention
like
it, but
36 hours.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, they came for like 36 hours. And what? Man, that was a session and a half. So these guys show up at. Sorry, no hate, but they had a show that night. So they finished their show probably at like what? Fucking midnight. They had a show with Drake. They were doing the show at the Bell Center with the Ferraris floating in the air or whatever the hell.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they did that, the Scorpion tour, right? Yeah. And they booked a session at the studio that night, and I knew it was the Migos, so I knew it was going to take a while for them to get there. So the label booked it at 11 p.m., I think, 11 p.m. or 10 p.m., and they didn't show up until close to 3 a.m., after the after party, like they went and had a little after party, and then they dipped and they came to the studio. They came to the studio, bro, like right away. Like this is so mean to tell this story. I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but they came to the studio and they just went to bed. Like they just came. I opened the door for Offset. It was just Offset at first. He came in with like his 6 bodyguards. They came in, they just slept. They went right on the couches, they went to bed. The engineer, his name is, what's his name? I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but they had their own engineer. So the guy came in, set up the Pro Tools session. I got like a C800 ready for the guys to, whenever they wanted to record, at least it was ready. Got it ready. The guy was super nice, super appreciative. We like chatted a little bit. And then, by then it's like 4 a.m. and I'm exhausted. And I kind of I sit at the kitchen table and I kind of fall asleep. And the engineer kind of did the same thing. He was like chilling in the chair at the Pro Tools and kind of fell asleep. And within, I think by 8 or 9 a.m., everybody's up, bro. They want McDonald's, and they start recording, like, straight away. And Offset does a verse for, I can't remember who it was, but he does a guest verse. Quavo shows up. Quavo chills. They have a talk. And the funny thing about this story is that I'm chilling at the the lounge table. I'm chilling there. my head down. I'm exhausted, man. I'm really tired. Didn't really sleep. And I'm kind of just on my phone, like just chilling while they're talking. I don't realize that they're talking about business. They're talking business shit, like, real shit. And Quavo looks at me. He's like, and you, who are you? I was like, hey man, I'm Jacob. Nice to meet you. And I put my hand out to shake his hand, and he doesn't shake my hand. And he says, I don't appreciate you listening to our conversations. And I say, okay, no problem. I get up, I leave, and bodyguards are looking at me like, ooh, shit. So I sit outside on a chair. They continue their conversations. It's cool, whatever. Give them their space. And then as they go to leave, Quavo says, I appreciate you, bro. And then Offset walks by, says, I appreciate you, bro. And they leave. They go to the airport. They fly right away back to LA or wherever. So that was my experience with the Migos. I didn't actually record them in theory, but I set up for the guy. I assisted the engineer. I helped him out. I took care of the guys. I went and got them backwoods at like a random time throughout the day. Like I helped these guys out. It was cool, man. It was a cool vibe. It was definitely intense, but
yeah,
it was
for
cool.
sure. For sure.
And that's pretty much the end of my list of like the big, and we already mentioned like Half Moon Run, the big run I did with them. So we don't need to go back into that. But that was
we're good. We're good with that.
The coolest. That was the coolest experience. Yeah, that was the coolest experience.
So like, given all these artists you've worked with, overall, how was your overall experience with working with such talented artists?
That's a good question. Let me say one thing. Working with talented artists just kind of, you kind of get just inspired to just do more and do better. That's all I can say, because these guys, they have their shit figured out, man. They know what they got to do. They don't care. They come. They have a show at the Bell Center. They have a show at the Bell Center, and they book Planet Studios.
That's it.
They come to the studio. Got this fucking scrawny white kid who shows up with his mics and gets it all ready. They don't care. They don't care. They just want to get their work done. And so their drive, I'm not saying they don't care about me. I'm just saying like they don't care. They come here to work. They want to get their shit done. So the cool thing I got from that experience is because I was ready to do what I had to do to get my shit done. You know what I mean? So all these guys appreciated me because I knew what I was doing and I worked hard to make sure they were happy. So the biggest thing I took from them, I think, is their drive and their passion. It was cool. I had good times, man. I worked with some famous people, and I think it's humbling to just be in the presence of these greats, doing their thing.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have a genre that you prefer working on?
Good question. So genres, I would say at the moment, I'm working mostly in pop and Latin, believe it or not. I'm doing a lot of Latin stuff. I'm actually co-producing an artist named Jace Carrillo. He's a Montreal artist. He's a Latino artist here in Montreal, and I'm co-producing that with Luca, who Jaian knows, Luca the producer. His Instagram is @Luca the producer, and fantastic producer here in Montreal. I share this studio actually with him, and we're co-producing this artist. So we've been working with him. I've been working with him for a little while before that, mixing his stuff, and really amazing shit, man. Amazing artist. And so I've been doing a lot of Latin, a lot of pop, the occasional indie records. I did a record recently with Red Fox, who's a good, amazing Montreal indie band.
Right.
We did this record probably in the last couple months. We recorded everything, I mixed everything, mastered. Actually, no, I didn't master it. I sent it to a mastering engineer, Richard Addison, who's fantastic. Trillium Sound Mastering, amazing mastering engineer, and that record came out recently. Amazing record. So my clientele right now kind of sits in the indie pop / Latin occasionally too. So that's kind of my genre at the moment.
Well, I mean, pop and rap, they're very similar mixing style, but I'm sure indie has a slight difference.
Yeah, like indie. Cool thing about indie is there's no rules, bro. Like indie, you mix that stuff. Like especially I have a client, Vince James, who's a fantastic Montreal artist as well. He produces all his own stuff, and I've been mixing his stuff for a couple of years now. And this guy is just like no rules, bro. Guitar tones, like screaming, like there's atmospheric stuff. He has like layers of pop music in his stuff these days. It's like really dope. Mixing hip hop and pop, very similar in the mixing aspect, but different tones. So like pop is a little more clean, a little more airy.
Yeah.
Hip hop tends to go a little
heavily
more
compressed.
dirty. Yeah, dirty, kind of upfront.
Yeah.
In
your face.
no holds barred. Like you want those guys, the hip hop artists, to just scream in your face, bro, like all the time. And that's kind of the vibe when I'm mixing hip hop.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, for like mixing hip hop, we'll get into like plugins and stuff like that at the very end because I do want to talk about story stuff more importantly. But you showed me a template when I started there, and I still use it because it just sounds good. It's just simple. It just works well. It just makes it sound loud and big, and it's like it's great. I absolutely relate.
I'm a big template. I vouch for templates. I think some people will hate on this. Some people will hate on this. But like, when you have your thing that just kind of works, I have a mixing template that I use for everything, bro. I use it for indie. I use it for indie. I used it for hip hop. I've used it for pop albums. Like when you have a template that just works with the things that you like, I stick to it.
Yeah, and if it works, it works. You don't have to really question it.
It's funny, like it gets to the point where even recently I tried to, for fun, mix a record without my template. Like just start from scratch and just do it from nothing. And it didn't give me the flavor that I liked from my mixes. And, some people will look at that like, oh, well, that's your crutch. You can only mix with your template. But bro, I worked a long time to get that template together. I have the stuff that I like, the things that I reach to. And it's it's an ease of workflow. If I can mix a song in 2 hours and get the result I want, then what's the difference from me mixing for 8 hours and getting that same result? There's no difference. So why not use my template to give me that speed of workflow? Because the thing with mixing that people seem to not understand is that the faster you get to your end result, the better, because you're not second guessing yourself. You're not second guessing yourself. You're not overthinking things. You're just kind of going with your gut. And I think that's what makes a mixing engineer. It's like whatever is in your gut and you want that in your final result, the faster you can get there, the better. Yeah. And so that's why I'm a big advocate for mixing templates. Just do it, bro. Get your shit together. Figure out a template that works for you with the stuff you like. And that's it.
Dope.
Right.
How many templates do you have right now? Like you have the vocal one, you have a mixing one. That's it, right?
That's it. I have two. Yeah. I have a vocal recording template with some stuff that I like. I have a vocal recording template with a couple plugins on the record channel. Just so I think what's important for artists when they're recording is that what they hear in the headphones sounds like a record, When they're singing or rapping or whatever, they need to hear it as if it was like, that's it. It's going to Spotify, like live. You know what I mean? They need that feeling, and it makes them perform better. So my vocal recording template is a little bit of that. It's a little bit of compression, a little bit of EQ. There's some multi-band stuff in there. Like reverbs, delays, whatever makes the artist comfortable. I want that in the recording template because I want them to deliver the best performance they can. And so that's my recording template. And my mixing template is very simple. It's the shit I like all the stuff that I like in my buses and whatever, my parallel compression stuff, my effects. It's all ready. It's all there, easily accessible, and it makes my workflow like so much better.
100%. I just want to comment real quick on the vocal template. The success I've literally witnessed it on rappers. This one time, it was like one of my first solo gigs at the studio. A group of rappers walks in. We have a C800 mic, and I have like all the reverbs, the delays on. Like Jacob's like, I just opened the template, like I didn't touch anything yet. The guy just goes on the mic and he just like talks into it. He's like, I'll say it in French because it's so much funnier. He's like, oh my god, j'ai l'impression d'être dans les Appalaches, which is like a forest because of how like fantastic the reverb and the delay was sounding. And he was like, this sounds so good. So I really think it touches to the point you were saying earlier that like you want them to feel like it's Spotify ready as they're recording.
Bro, it's like the thing that engineers often overlook is double checking what your shit sounds like before the artist gets there. Like it's part of my preparation. I get my template ready. I get my mic ready, my preamps, everything's good, everything's patched, everything works. I go to the microphone, I put the headphones on, and I pretend like I'm singing. Or I sing, in the mic because I want to hear what they're going to hear.
I mean, it's all having a sense of organization.
Yeah, and sometimes I go back and forth, like between the booth and the console room. Like I'll go back and forth to adjust stuff, reverb times, EQ settings, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, EQ settings, it's very specific to the guy who's singing. But
yeah, of course.
Like the guy or girl, I should say. But whoever's singing, it's like you have to make sure it's comfortable. As soon as they put the headphones on, it's got to sound good. There's got to be no problems. You don't want one side of the headphones not to work when they put the headphones on. You got to make sure all your technical shit's out of the way, because as soon as they step on that mic, it's very intimate. They're about to, spill their soul to you. Who knows? They might have been working on this song for 2 months. Who knows? So you got to make sure they put those headphones on. It sounds like, amazing.
Definitely.
And, you got to take the time to do that. And some engineers don't do that. They just, they have their settings. They leave it there. They don't touch it. The client puts the headphones on, and it's like all of a sudden one side doesn't work, or like there's too much reverb, or blah, blah, blah. It's like that could really off-put a session.
Yeah. I don't want to throw shade to anybody, but that sounds a little bit lazy. Preparing.
It's lazy. Like, you got to prepare well. You got to make sure that when the artist puts the headphones on, there's no issues. Because as soon as there's an issue, they start to doubt you. And the minute the artist doesn't have trust in their engineer, session's over, man. Mm-hmm. You might as well go home at that point.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean on that one, for sure.
I agree.
For sure. Let's jump to another point, because we do talk a lot about the studio stuff that you've done. But recently, you've been doing a little bit of live audio, and you've become someone who works freelance. Do you want, maybe before we get into the live part, do you want to talk about the difference between having a room and doing your own work and being a house engineer? What's the difference for you? Like, what are you noticing?
Good question. So definitely a different vibe. As far as, let me get real, like career wise, for anybody listening who's looking to make this move or whatever, it's a big jump. Like, working in a commercial studio for 5 years as the house engineer, and you get comfortable with that. You start to learn how things work in that I guess aspect or domain or whatever you want to call it. But you start learning how things work there, and then I had been at the studio as the house engineer for 5 years. It was about time. I had my clientele, I had my shit together. I rented a room here with Luca. We have a couple microphones and stuff. I would say the biggest change was lifestyle, where as a house engineer, and basically I wasn't only the house engineer, I was taking care of the studio. I was like the studio manager, caretaker, house engineer, whatever you want to call it. I was doing everything.
/chef.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's fine. But like, when you go from being that guy to being the dude that just has a room and freelances, and I was as busy. Like, there was no change in my work schedule necessarily. It's just, what happened is I wasn't coming into the studio unless I had a session for myself. So what changed, the biggest change for me was, like, let's say, how to put this? I was as busy, but I wasn't just in the studio all the time for no real reason. When I was working as the house engineer at the studio, it's like I was doing everything, man. I was like, cleaning toilets, but also engineering Rosalía. Like, I was doing everything in between, and going freelance was a big change, because now I have my space. I know my space is going to be clean when I come in. I know my shit works. I know, it's like, if I have a session at 4, I'm not going to come in at 9 a.m. to the studio if I only have a session at 4. And the advantage too in my position is that I have a studio at home that I can work in. I can mix, I can edit, I could comp, I could tune vocals at home. And then I come here, I'll mix or I'll record vocals in my room. It's a different vibe. So the lifestyle change was significant, because I was working, I would say maybe I was working less. I was doing less hours in a studio. I was making more money, and I had more free time. I was just chilling. Yes. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different state of mind. And Jaian, I'm sure you lived through that too.
Yeah, I did.
It's a different lifestyle. When you're working for yourself, you make your own decisions. I took a month to go to Europe, bro. Like, I had worked for 5 years. I planned this trip with my mom. I was like, as soon as I went freelance, I started planning this trip with my mom, and I went to Europe for an entire month.
That's amazing.
Because I could. I didn't have to worry about stuff. I was my own boss. Yeah. So I had free time. That's it. I took a month to go to Europe. If I was still the house engineer, the studio would have fallen apart if I left for a month. So that's the big change in lifestyle. And I mean, as far as gear goes, of course, there's a big change, because You know, when you're the house engineer in a multi-million-dollar studio with a mic locker that's worth more than a villa in LA, you know, you get accustomed to that. You know, you throw up a $12,000 microphone on a wrapper, you know, it's going to sound fucking good from the beginning. Here, you know, you got to work a little bit harder, but with the experience that you get doing that for so long, you know what you want to hear. So even if you have a less than, you know, if you have I don't want to say subpar quality microphone, but if you just have like a normal mic, you learn how to make that work because of all the experience you have. So that was a big change. It's just the gear, being spoiled. I was spoiled, man. I had like tons of gear and tons of amazing microphones. Yeah, the best gear you could want. Yeah, the best gear you could want in this domain, you know, the best gear you could ever want. And then I go to my own studio where I have a modest setup, beautiful setup. It's cozy. Artists are very happy here, but I don't have, you know, the $40,000 vocal chain. You know what I mean? So that was a big change, but you make it work, you know, you learn to make it work.
Absolutely. For me personally, when I left the studio, the first thing I was like, I need all the plugins I'm used to working with. And like, I dropped a good chunk of change on just like all the fab filters I needed, like all the, you know, the ozone stuff I needed. And once I had that, I kind of felt like I was kind of back to where I needed to be. Personally for like my compositions, but I definitely understand that it's a huge jump.
It's a big jump, especially like Jaian, you were there for a good year. I was there for imagine 5 years using the same shit for 5 years. You know, you get you get used to that. And the first session I did with my vocal mic that I bought for whatever $2,000 or whatever, I do that session and I'm like, shit, man, the vocal doesn't sound like I'm used to. Not that it's bad, it just doesn't sound like the way I'm used to hearing it. And it's nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault. It's just I don't have the tools that I had when I was the house engineer. So it's a struggle. It's definitely a weird thing. But
naturally,
you make it work. You know, with experience, you kind of make it work. And I was going to say something. I totally forgot what I was going to say. But anyways, continue, gentlemen.
Well, I mean, since we're on the topic of gear, similarly, I would like to ask, what are your go-to plugins? What are some of
go-to plugins?
Yeah, some of your favorites. Don't mention all of them because
we'll be here all day. Trust me,
we'll be here all day.
This guy's got a huge library of plugs.
Bro, no, Jaian knows. Jaian knows, bro. I have way too many plugins. And you know, the funny thing is I probably use 30% of the plugins I own.
For sure.
And it's just because you see something pop up, it looks interesting, you use it for 2 weeks, and then you're like, okay, it's great. But then you go back to your like go-to, right? If I had to pick, let me go through my vocal chain. A vocal chain is the most important thing. Let me see. First instance, probably I'll put usually autotune, you know, if that's the case. If it's a thing that needs autotune, it'll be autotune first instance. Then usually I'll go for a Fab Filter Pro Q, and I'll do some subtractive EQ. Like I'll take out the nasty low end I don't like, or maybe some like harsh kind of top end stuff, you know, high mids, 4K, 2K, that nasty stuff that nobody likes. I'll take that stuff out, and then I'll do a Soothe, underrated plugin, bro. Soothe is godly.
It's insane. I use it on every podcast, guys.
Everything. I use it on overheads. I use it on the mix bus. I use it on the vocals. I use it on drum cymbals. I use it on whatever. It's just so good. It takes out bad resonances in high or low end stuff, like whatever you want. You tell it what to do, it'll do it. So I use Soothe, and then right after Soothe, I'll usually reach for multiband compression at that point. I'll reach for a C4, or there's a plugin by Mick DSP called MC404, and it's essentially the same thing as a C4. It does kind of the same deal, but I remember seeing a video of Jason Joshua using it on Rosalía, actually, which is funny. He was using it on Rosalía, and the way it compressed, the way it kind of did the controlling of the vocals, I really liked. So I got it for super cheap. I got it on sale for like $50, hit that up. I built a preset that worked for me, and I used that to kind of tame basically the low end of the vocal, where if, let's say, the singer is singing low voice, if he's like, hey, 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 it's going to compress the low end. And then if he's singing, hey, 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 it's not going to compress the low end because there's no information there. You know, that's what multiband compression is. It's like, as soon as a certain frequency range gets over a threshold, it'll compress it. But if there's not enough information down there, it won't do anything. So that's really good for vocals, because what happens is if a singer is singing low, you'll take out some of that mud in the vocal, but as soon as the singer goes higher in the range, it's not going to compress down there. It's not like an EQ where if you cut out 300 or 250, when the singer sings high, it sounds thin. You know what I mean? If you use multiband compression instead of EQ, if the singer sings high, it's not going to do anything. If the singer goes low and there's information down there, it'll compress it and make it sound smooth. So I'll use that. So it's Pro Q, Auto-Tune Pro Q, Soothe, multiband compression, whether it's C4 or MC404. Then usually I'll hit it with a compressor, like whatever I'm feeling on that given day, whatever side of the bed I woke up on. Like a 1176, 1176 by like a CLA 76 sometimes is really nice because it's aggressive and angry, which is nice.
I like that.
And then sometimes you hit it with the UAD, like the clean 1176 or the LA2A, like whatever. I don't want to go too crazy into the gear, but like I'll usually hit it with compression at that point where I've taken out all the nasty stuff I don't like. Then I'll compress the shit out of it, like the piss out of that vocal or out of the whatever. Usually I'm going to stick to vocal for this demonstration, but I'll just squash the shit out of it. And then after that, I'll hit it with usually, because compressors sometimes bring out some stuff, I'll usually hit it with another EQ, like another Pro Q3, and I'll just kind of dip out the stuff I'm not liking from that compressor. Whatever it brings out that I don't like, I'll dip it out. And then it's, maybe some saturation, maybe some EQ, like a SSL G channel from Waves, which I still love. I have a ton of SSL plugins, but I still go for the Waves one because it sounds amazing. And I'll just give it a little top end, or maybe I'll, fuck with the low end, I'll fuck with the high mids, whatever. I'll EQ. Usually I'm boosting in that plugin. I'm giving it like a little bit of sauce after the compression. I'll give it a little bit of sauce. Yeah. And then usually it's, saturation, reverb, delays, whatever. That's pretty much it. I mean, and the way I'm mixing these days, inspiration from Jason Joshua again, is I'm mixing in moments. Like as far as reverbs go, I have 6 vocal effects tracks that have nothing on it. And whenever I feel like there's a part of a vocal that needs like an effect, like a delay or like a reverb throw or something, I'll copy that clip of the vocal down to my effects track. Okay. And on the effects track, I'll put a bunch of effects like reverbs, full wet, whatever, and I'll just use clip gain or volume to gauge how much of that effect I want at that moment. So like, let's say there's a verse part at the end of the verse, I want a delay. I just copy the last word of that verse down to a track with like a wet delay. Yeah. And it'll just do the delay, but only for that moment. And I find it makes for a more interesting mix because it's not like constant delays all the time. It's just, certain moments have certain effects. And, maybe you listen to that song and you connect with that effect, and maybe you want to listen to the song again because you want to hear that one effect again. It's cool. It's a fun way to mix because you don't think static. You think in moments.
And to be honest, it's probably even better for your CPU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big time. And you don't have to ride faders.
Especially when you're running so many plugins, heavy plugins.
It's not even about that. I bought a Mac Mini that's just like a beast. I don't have to worry about that. But like, it's more about the creative workflow. If let's say I have a mix together, and usually I do my vocal effects and stuff at the end. Once I get the blends nice. Yeah. Then I'll do my vocal effects kind of towards the end to create some kind of interesting stuff. And I'll do that towards the end. I'll just listen to the song from the top to the end. And I'll just like, when I hear something, I'm like, oh shit, that needs a delay, or oh, that needs like a reverb throw or something. I just like quickly copy the thing. I copy it, I drag it down to the track with the reverb I want or whatever. And that's it. That's all I need to do. It's quick. It's a workflow thing.
That's a great workflow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it inspired my workflow a lot. So I abide by this workflow. I enjoy it. I use it a lot for lunatic rappers and stuff. So
you Jaian certify it.
I Jaian certify it. Yeah. If that has any value compared to you, So
I mean, Jaian helped me a lot with my workflow. So technically, you helped me out with my workflow through Jaian.
Yeah, that's true. Like, yes, that's true. Jacob,
but
I gave Anthony a lot of
Yeah.
Workflow is everything, guys. Like, that's my biggest tip to anybody. The moment you have an artist waiting on you as an engineer, it's game over.
It's done.
It's game over. It's game over. You have to have the workflow ready, whether you're working with, just a Montreal local rapper who has no following, or you're working with whoever, Rosalía, whatever it is. Yeah. You need to have a workflow together that the moment they're ready to start delivering for you, you're on top of your shit, man. You don't make them wait, because the moment you make them wait, it's game over. That's it. It's done.
Definitely. I want to ask you about, we talk a lot about Planet Studios, but, and you're sharing a room with Luca now. And I know what the community there is like. It's a fantastic one. But talk to us about being in a studio with all these talented engineers, fantastic artists, amazing records that were produced there on the wall. Like, talk to us about the community and the importance of being at Planet Studios.
It's hard to have like a podcast-worthy, unsubjective approach, because I've been around these people for so long. But I would say it's a tight-knit community here, man. Like, so basically, for those who are listening who don't know about the studio, it's you're looking at 2 main rooms that operate as the main studio, like the business of the studio. And then you're looking at probably 12 rooms that are rented by engineers, like on a monthly basis, like mine. So I pay X amount of dollars. I have this room, it's mine. I have a key for the front door. I have an alarm code. I come in here, I do my work, whatever I got to do, and that's it. And so there's, 11 other people in this building that do the same thing. And I've been around these people for so long that it's hard for me to even describe it to you, but it's a family, man. Like, what, just yesterday, I went out, had a coffee in the coffee area, and there was G with his clients, and John was there, and Byron was there. All these dudes that work here, and we just had a chat, man. We had a coffee, we had a chat. It's good for the mental health. It's like all these dudes are doing amazing work, doing their things. Right next to me, there's Pierre Girard, who works on Galaxy, who works on Fred Fortin, who works on all these sick records here. And he's an inspiration for me. So you're working around all these people who are doing their thing, who are killing it in their fields. And it's inspiring. You go out, have a coffee, you talk shop, hey, what are you doing? Any free plugins these days or whatever, You just kind of shoot the shit, and it makes it, I don't know. It's like, if I were to work at home in my own studio by myself for the rest of my life, I'd probably hate my life, because I love these people and I want to be around people who are doing the same thing, who are going through the same shit that I'm going through. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely. So
it's a family, it's a community, and it
really is.
That's what it
really is. Yeah,
Jaian. You've been around these guys.
I know. Yeah, I absolutely know what you're talking about.
We take care of each other.
Yeah, we do take care of each other in more ways than one. Trust me, Jacob's been there for me a lot, and I appreciate him as a human and as a coworker in audio. I want to also jump to because obviously now that you do freelance, you're not as much in the studio, and I have seen on your social media that you have started doing live audio work.
Yes,
and so I just really want to get into that. Like, how does it compare to studio work? How did you get into it? Like, just live audio is a completely different animal than studio.
Oh, bro, yeah, it's weird. So let me tell you how this came about. So I did this record last year, the year before. It's been a minute. We did this record. The album is called Transestral, and it's basically a world music record, but with influences of indigenous people, throat singing, powwows, like, where there's, 3 dudes, like 3 indigenous dudes, like banging on a drum, singing like folk tunes. Like it's a vibe, bro. It's super dope. And I did this record 2 years ago, and the kind of director of the thing kind of hit me up. Jaian, you might have met her actually. Her name is Katia. You've definitely met her.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. It does sound familiar.
You've definitely met her. And she hit me up at one point and said, hey, we're doing some live shows during the summer and fall for this project that you recorded, that you did the album for. Are you down to do the live sound? I was like, I've never done live sound once in my life, but I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I'm down. I'm down to be a part of that community. Like, it's a very amazing community with really brilliant people. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so they bought me a live console, a Behringer X32 compact, like a little guy. And I was basically going around to parks in Montreal with the band and just doing shows with like a PA just kind of hooked up onto a battery. Like, it was like super, super minimalist, but also very dope. And we were doing these shows outside, and I was just mixing live. And the difference in workflow is that whatever you learned in the studio has to happen in 10 minutes. That's the big difference. Like, you have to make it nice, but in 10 or 15 minutes. Not to mention you have bandmates who can't Jaian, you know all about this, but you have, in studio, you have these monitor systems that you can build your own mix. You explain to them like, oh, drums is here, bass is there, guitar is there, vocals there, keys are over there, and they can build their own mix. If they want to hear more keys, they just hit a button, they turn it up. But in live, they have in-ears or they have a monitor on the floor, and I'm in charge of that. So that was a big change, having to deal with all that, but also making it sound good for the people there. And it was, different workflow, but easy to adapt to. I would say if you're a studio guy and you're interested in live, it's definitely easier than you think to adapt. The only thing that's kind of a bummer for me is that I haven't worked, the full disclosure, I haven't worked in like a real venue. I've only worked outside with like PA systems outside. I haven't worked with like, I have a show coming up on the, I have a show coming up on the 27th, but I'm not actually doing the sound. I'm just the like kind of technical director of the thing. But like, if I was put in that spot, that would be a different learning experience, right? Where you have to like learn the room. These guys that work in that room, that do live shows in that room every day, all the time, they know that room. They know how it works. They know the gear. They know the routing. They know all that shit. I don't know that stuff.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely a weird vibe where like if I have a buddy who works next door, Frank, he does live sound for Charlotte Cardin, who's a huge Quebec artist. And she tours all over the place. And he tours with her to do her live sound. He brings his console. Like he has a console that the label owns, and he just tours with that. And he shows up to the venue, he plugs the console in with all the, XLRs from the stage, and he just makes it work. And like this guy, bro, I went to see a show 2 years ago, Charlotte playing live, and it's amazing. It's a whole different thing. And I'm hoping to get there one day, but it's a different ball game. Like you got to be ready to eat shit and make mistakes. Feedback is the biggest thing to deal with in live. You have a singer who in studio would have headphones on, but in live has two big wedge monitors on the ground spitting sound at 60 decibels in his face, and it's going to feed back. If you bring that mic up too loud in his monitors, you have to learn how to deal with that, and it's hard. So I'm still learning. I won't cap. I'm not expert in live sound, but I'm learning, and it's a thing. You have to, it's its own kind of domain. That's all I can say. Yeah.
Working live sound is definitely tricky. Like there is absolutely zero room for error. I mean, there's no room for error in a studio, but at least in a studio,
well, you got time.
You can tweak.
In a studio, you have time. You have time, bro. If something goes wrong,
when it's live, it needs to be instant.
If something goes wrong in studio, you could tell the artist, "Hey, bro, go have a coffee.
That's it.
Take 5 minutes. I'm gonna figure this thing out. Go take 5 minutes, have a coffee, chat with the cute waitress or whatever the fuck. Go chill. I'm gonna figure this out." But in live,
it's stressful.
You can't do that shit, man.
It's so stressful.
Like if it doesn't work, you better figure it out like fucking quick, man, because you're gonna ruin the vibe for the live show, and then the artist is not gonna trust you. Same principle as studio. If the artists on stage don't trust you in live, the show's gonna go bad because they're just constantly second guessing themselves because they're not hearing themselves properly or whatever the hell. But in studio, it's the same thing. It's weird. Absolutely. There's some elements of live that connect with the elements of studio, but it's also a whole different thing.
Okay. I have a jump to another question. I think this is the perfect segue. We were talking about making mistakes and figuring things out. Describe to us your worst studio experience. Like what was like the biggest screw up, or like the worst, like just like what was the one, like the rock bottom? What was rock bottom?
Wow. That's an amazing question. I'm gonna start by saying I don't make mistakes, okay, guys? But
no cap.
I've had some moments in studio where I can't say I remember like definitive bad times, like mistakes I've made, but because it's been so long. But there's definitely moments where things don't work. You plug in a microphone and all of a sudden the mic doesn't work, and the artist is sitting there, he's waiting for you to sound check his trumpet or whatever the fuck, and it's not working. So the biggest mistakes I made in my early days was not knowing how to deal with that troubleshooting. And Jaian knows better than anybody, I'm the god of troubleshooting in my late years. But in my early years, I was like everybody else, where it was panic mode, bro. It was like, oh my God, this is not working. Let me unplug the XLR. Let me unplug it here. Let me unplug the patch cable. Let me try a different preamp. Let me do this. Let me do that. And I think my early mistakes were definitely in that realm of like just not enough experience to know how to troubleshoot stuff. You know what happens when you have a problem and you're not sure where it's coming from. If you don't have experience, it's going to be really hard to figure out where it's coming from. Now if I have an issue, I have a strategy of testing stuff. Like if I set up a full band, let's say, I'll set up microphones on stands, on mic stands. I'll get them ready in the live room. And then in the console room, I'll get the Pro Tools session ready. I'll patch the preamps to the Pro Tools inputs. And I'll make sure the preamps are making it to the Pro Tools inputs, by clicking some gain or making sure, whatever. Just to make sure that the preamps are communicating properly to Pro Tools. That way, I know if there's any issues, it's coming before the preamps, because I know the preamps are working. So that's already one big step eliminated. So it's like, if I have a problem, I know it's like either the microphone, the tie line, the XLR. That's it. There's only 3 options for problems because I know the preamp is making it to Pro Tools. But back, 5 years ago, when I didn't have that experience, you don't know that shit. So you just kind of, you plug stuff in and, Hail Mary and hope for the best. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you have problems. So my biggest mistakes probably, it was that, and
yeah, okay.
Other than that, I can't think of anything, man. It's been so long.
Right.
It's okay. I think it's a great lesson to pull from regardless.
Yeah, just trouble when you're setting up stuff, no matter what you're doing. If you're doing a live show, if you're doing a live band in studio, if you're doing a vocal session, who the fuck cares, man? Check your shit. Make sure your stuff works.
Yeah.
Because the moment, like I've said before earlier in the podcast, if you set up stuff and the artist shows up and they put on the headphones and something doesn't work, they will have every reason to doubt you. And I don't,
You don't blame them.
Like I don't blame them. Yeah. Like if you're the engineer and they're paying you whatever, $35 an hour, or $60 an hour, or $75 an hour, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you don't have your shit together when they step in the booth and they put on the headphones and they step in front of the mic, that's it. It's game over, man.
Exactly.
So you have to get your shit together. So that's something I learned over time in the studio. So my mistakes were made before I had that experience. That's it. Like if you're an engineer, that's my biggest tip to you. Make sure when you set up your shit, it fucking works, man. That's it.
Definitely.
That's like mic drop. That's mic drop moment. That's mic drop moment. Make sure the shit fucking works, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And
I know what you mean. Go ahead, Anthony, please.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say. Well, in contrast to that, what were some of your favorite sessions at Planet?
Oh, I've had a lot of really amazing sessions. I would say, man, redundant, but the Half Moon Run sessions were a lot of fun, man. But it was a lot of fun because it was dope, but also like that extra, 15% of fun was because I was a huge fan of Half Moon Run before they came to the studio. Like no cap, bro, I was listening to Half Moon Run like in my emo days when I had black hair and like, I was fucking wearing weird pants and shit. Like that was my I was Half Moon Run before working at the studio. Like I was, so working in studio with them, I remember seeing the calendar booking. Like I remember like chilling at home on like a Sunday or something, and I see like a little notification on my phone. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I see on my phone, studio owner booked Half Moon Run for 2 weeks in whatever, February or some shit. I was like, holy shit, Half Moon Run. Right away, I was calling my buddies. I was, dude, there's fucking Half Moon Run coming to the studio, bro. It's gonna be sick. And then like, as time went on, I was like, is this for real, bro? And he's like, yeah, dude. And yeah, it fucking happened, bro. I spent 2 weeks in a studio with Half Moon Run. The first 2 weeks were awkward because these guys are super, they're like super intelligent, but also I would say, please don't, nobody get mad, but these guys were like a little bit introverted at first. It was their vibe. They were doing their thing. They didn't know me and I didn't know them. So it was weird for the first couple weeks. But then on the second run where they did like a whole month and a half, then we got to connect, and it was super dope. We were hanging out all the time. We were drinking, like it was cool. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but anyways, what was the question before this?
The question was your favorite session.
Favorite session was Half Moon Run because of that exact reason. Because it was just like flawless. It was flawless. It was stressful at first because I knew these guys. I was a fan of these guys beforehand. And so as things became more camaraderie vibes, you know, where we were in this together, it was a vibe, it was cool. They show up in the morning, it was like, hey dudes, what's up? You know, I was drinking their beer and then buying more beer for them after. Like, it was a vibe. And so, you know, that was, I would say that's my favorite session in my, probably, unless something crazy happens, that's the best session I will probably ever have in my entire life, because these guys are just the nicest dudes. I'm already a fan of them. I've loved their music since I was a teenager, and like, we got to share these incredible moments. I remember going backstage at, I was with my buddy Jordan at in Longueuil. They were doing a show in Longueuil in Montreal, and they invited us to go there. I had 2 tickets, guest list. Me and Jordan, we went, and we were in the stands. They gave us a shout out during the show. They're like, guys, thanks Jacob and Jordan and Sam. Obviously Sam, who was the boy who took care of them. Like, I took care of the studio part of Half Moon Run, but Sam took care of Half Moon Run part of Half Moon Run. He took care of recalling the guitar pedals. He took care of recalling, you know, the strings. What strings did they use for that song? It was intense, bro. So they on stage thanked me, Jordan, Sam. We were drinking. We had a sick time. We went backstage after the show. We went to a bar. We had a great time. We hung out with all the guys. Then we went home, and then they did a show at Metropolis, which my clients, Vince James, opened for Half Moon Run, which was even more sick because I got guest listed from Half Moon Run, but my clients were opening for them. So it was like double whammy, bro. It was sick. So go see Vince James, go see Half Moon Run. After that, go to a bar, get fucked up. It was a vibe. We had a good time. And like, these guys, I say it was my funnest session, but it was just my funnest experience, man. Like, it wasn't just the session that was fun. It was just the experience of working with those clients, because I would have never, I still talk to these guys sometimes. Like, I just hit them up. Hey bro, how you doing? You know, and we talk, we shoot the shit. So it's, I don't know. Hard to explain, but definitely, Half Moon Run, best experience and also best session of my life, because Joe Ciccarelli and Half Moon Run, bro, come on.
I was curious to ask you, given you worked at Planet Studios for 5 years and you saw how it was before and after the pandemic, or during actually, has the pandemic impacted anything for you while working in a studio? And if so, how did it impact it?
Yeah, good question. I felt this one was coming. Okay, so what happened is studio was fucking busy, pardon my French, fucking busy, bro, before the lockdown. And so there was a lockdown from March to June or July, I can't remember, June, I think. There was a lockdown from March to June because the virus was getting crazy, whatever. So we were like pretty busy up until March, and then we shut down. It was like game over, bro. It's like everybody go home and stay home for 3 months. Right. So that was hard. Let me say one thing though. The first 3 weeks was a blessing because I was burnt out. I was working so hard before the lockdown. I was so burnt out. So the first 3 weeks was like time off. I still worked for the studio, and I was doing some work from home, finding files, sending files, maybe doing some mixes from home for the studio. It's cool. But for the first 3 weeks, it was time off really well, like really deserved and really needed. And then after that, tough, man, tough. Like after 3 weeks, bro, you're like desperate to go back to work. It's like, it's a weird vibe. You're just sitting at home doing nothing, picking your nose all day. And, I had some work, but things were dry. And at that time, I wasn't freelance. I didn't have the drive for my clientele that I have now. So I wasn't working from home all that much. And like, how to say, it was 3 months of just like chilling, which was really hard. But then when the studio opened back up officially in June, I think it was June 1st, like straight up June 1st, bro, busy. The first week, kind of hit and miss, like a little bit busy, but not that busy. And then like second week of June, bro, flat, like just busy as shit. And I think that's when Jaian came in right after the pandemic. He started assisting me like right after, like probably first week of July, Jaian was there. And it was busy, man. And I would say I'm just gonna cut off the story and just give an anecdote to this whole thing.
Right.
I would say in the music industry, we are very lucky
Yeah.
Because most of us, I don't want to say live engineers, because live engineers, unfortunately, they had, they had fucking, shit thrown in their face throughout COVID because they couldn't do any shows, understandably. Absolutely. So that sucks. Live engineers, it sucks. But for us, like, mixing engineers and like podcast editors or whatever, like, it was chill, man. Like, I actually know some people who had some really good success through COVID, like more than usual, because people think about it, right? People are locked in their house for 3 months. They have nothing to fucking do. They're going to write songs.
Exactly. And that's why I was curious to ask how it was for you. Yeah.
I mean, me, it was hit and miss. I was still doing stuff for the studio, but I was mixing a lot.
Yeah.
Like, so luckily enough, thank God, praise Canada, like, amen, Canada, we were like super taken care of. The pandemic, the Canadian government took care of us hard, bro. They gave us money to like survive. And like, bro, thank you, Canada. But like, I was still getting some work, and the work was coming from artists in their house, like with nothing to do. And they were recording themselves with their Scarlett eye-to-eye interfaces or their Apollos. Like, they were just like chilling and recording themselves, and I had to mix that stuff. And I could charge them for it, So I wasn't successful like I was when things were booming, but I didn't struggle with the Canadian government helping like they were. It was chill. Like, I was cool. And yeah, some people weren't as fortunate, but for me, it was not, I don't want to say a good time, but like, it was, it was chill. It was a well-needed rest, but also I was surviving. But it was as scary as anybody else.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Coming back from the pandemic, before I stopped playing it and went freelance, coming out of the pandemic in June, busy as shit, bro. Let me tell you, this place was bumping. Jaian was there. This place was busy as hell. And like, we were working, like, we had like a TV, like a TV show shoot that lasted like 3 months. Not all the time, but it was an extended period of time, like 1 week off, 1 week on, and it was a TV show for the company was called Zone 3. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but it was a TV show with Marc Dupré, and it was called En Studio. Very busy time back then, because they were taking up the studio for like a week at a time for 3 weeks, half and run style, bro. They booked for 3 weeks. Yeah. Like, everywhere, even the back rooms, bro. Like, Pierre's room, like the hallways, bro. There was like camera people in the hallways all the time. It was big. Wow. And like, it was busy. And then around that, there was other sessions. Like, I remember one time, like, on the end of a shooting day, I got a call from the owner saying, hey, there's a session that wants to come in for a video shoot at 9 p.m. Are you guys going to be done shooting? I was like, dude, I don't know, bro, but I've been here for 14 hours. I've been here since 5. I don't want to do this thing. And bro, the studio was that busy that the owner was like, hey dude, do you mind if I sneak like this little thing like at the evening? Like, it was that busy after COVID. And then since then, it's been steady busy. Like, the studio, I'm here, I'm renting a room, I'm not even part of the studio anymore, and I see these poor guys, I see these dudes like just working all the time. They're always here. Studio's packed. I think the music industry was lucky enough, unless you're a live guy.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that.
Personally, like, I just want to, like, if I could interject here, because I was literally like a byproduct of arriving at the studio because of the pandemic. I like, and Anthony would know, like, I was like regularly in contact and hanging out and stuff like that, I had no social life. Like, I had no time. I would like wake up, go to the studio, fall asleep at the studio. I was just like, my life was like that was it. There was nothing else to it. And like, it made me a man. Like,
you have to have that. You have to have the drive, dude. The amount of times I slept. So I didn't even tell you guys this, but the first 2 weeks of working as an intern at the studio, I was still living in the West Island. So let's say, I think I started working at the studio in May, and we managed to get an apartment in June in Montreal. So in May, I started interning, but for the first 3 weeks or 2 weeks, I didn't have an apartment in Montreal. So I was full-time at the studio. No place to live in Montreal. I slept at the studio for 2 weeks, bro.
Oh my God.
2 weeks. I think I went home like on evenings sometimes to like shower and get fresh clothes. Thankfully though, I will say, the studio next door that the guys have, they have their studios next door now. That used to be an apartment, and there was a shower, there was a bed, there was like things, bro. Like it was like an apartment, but like for me, just for me. So I would like do sessions all day. The first record I ever did for Planet was Ima. Ima is a fairly popular Quebec artist, and she was doing a bossa nova record. And it was my first gig as an assistant with the owner of the studio. And I think I was here for 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day. And I was so tired by the end that I wouldn't want to drive for an hour back to the West Island because I knew I had to be back here at 8 in the morning. So I was like, fuck this. And I would go to the apartment next door, sleep in the dude's fucking couch bed, and take a shower quick in the morning, put the same clothes on, unfortunately, and do my session the next day. And then every 4 or 5 days, I'd go home quick things and get fresh clothes. And I think I was smart enough to bring extra clothes to the studio. Mind that. I wasn't wearing the same clothes for an entire week, but that was hardcore, bro. You have to have that kind of dedication when you start working in a studio, because it's, you can't just want to work in a studio and make it big real quick, bro. You have to, you have to grind.
Yeah, sacrifice for sure.
Yeah.
That's intense.
Absolutely. Very, very intense. We're almost at the end of our questions here. I think this is more of a technical question. We don't have to get too specific, but I'd like to, for people who are really into recording, I think they'll appreciate this.
Yeah, sure.
Your recording workflow, go-to mics, outboard, mic pre's when you're recording. Let's start with the band. What's just your go-to, for drums, real quick, spitfire around here.
Okay, so I will admit that most of my full bands have been at the studio downstairs, which has a Neve console. And so, let's say full band, hypothetical, I have a drummer, I have a bassist, I have a guitarist, I have a keyboard player, I have I have a vocalist, lead vocalist, and I have 2 background vocalists. Let's say hypothetically that's what I'm doing. I will fill up the console like a maniac. So drums from 1 to 12, let's say. I have a kick out, I have a snare top, I have a snare bottom, I have a hi-hat, I have a tom, I have a rack tom, I have a floor tom, I have a mono room mic in the kit, in the guy's crotch, compressing like crazy. Then I have, 2 overheads, 2 room mics. Then I'll have, a bass DI, a bass amp. Then I'll have a guitar, a ribbon mic, a guitar condenser mic, and then maybe keys left and right on DIs. And then I'll have, 1 vocal, fancy mic, 47 or a 67. And then I'll have back vocals on 87s. But that shit fills up my console. There's no secret. It's just whatever studio I'm working in, I'm definitely going to take advantage of the console. What's the point if there's a console there? Let me use that shit. Let me put the mics through the console. So I was using Neve from channels 1 to 24, man. Nice. I was just filling up that. And then on the occasional things like kick, my favorite thing on kick and snares, I like to use distressors. I like that shit. It smacks. You put it on the distortion setting, distortion 1, and you kind of give it a little bit of sauce, and it kind of, distorts nice. And then maybe a pull tech on the kick, a pull tech on the snare. Give it top end on the snare, give it a little bit of bottom on the kick. What am I looking at? Mono room, a mono in the kit, 1176, just squatch the shit out of it. Make it aggressive as hell just to get that tone. Because as soon as the guy hits a rack tom, that compressor is going to react and it's going to sound really good. As soon as the guy smacks the snare, it's going to react, it's going to sound good. Overheads, maybe a little bit of EQ. I don't generally compress overheads. Room, I like to compress the shit out of them to the point where they barely breathe. Just to get a little bit of character. But I'm talking specifically for downstairs at the studio I work at, because downstairs the room is generally pretty dry. There's not much room in the room itself. So, room mics, they don't serve much of a purpose unless you really squash them. So that's why I squash the room mics. A bass, LA2As, on the DI and the mic on the bass amp. Yeah, 2 LA2As, why not? Guitars, I don't usually touch guitars with compression. Lead vocal, if I have an extra LA2A, sure. Otherwise, I'll use an 1176 or even a retro 176. Sounds good. What else? Back vocals. Back vocals, leave them dry. It's fine. You could do what you need with back vocals in the box. It's chill. I like to think about it as like a hybrid thing. Like I want to get what I can from the analog world, but then as soon as it hits Pro Tools, that's it. Everything's in digital after that.
Yeah. Vocalists, just like a 2-track rapper. What's your go-to for that?
1176 and usually C800. That's usually the sweet spot. Yeah.
Nice.
And then in the box, I do a bunch of shit in the box.
Yeah, like your vocal
EQ and compression in the box. I just get like a standard kind of level, kind of vibe tone with the analog stuff. But once it hits Pro Tools, then I'll vibe out. I'll go crazy. I'll do some EQ. I'll do some crazy reverbs. Whatever I feel like the artist needs, I'll do that in the box. It's easier to manage.
Right. 100%. And then for a voiceover, like if a voice actor was coming in to do a commercial read or something, what mic and what outboard, mic pre, what about that?
So perfect example is what I'm doing right now. I have an 87 right now. It's a clone, mind you. It's not a real 87 because I don't want to pay $6,000 for a 87. But I have an 87. It's going in my Apollo, and I have a 1073 emulation on it. Sorry, actually, I killed the 1073. I'm actually using just the stock Apollo preamp. Very clean, very nice sounding, and I'm using a distressor as the compressor. In case I decide to yell like this, hey! It's going to compress a little bit, and it's going to be fairly clean. So that's what I'm using now. When I was in studio, I was using oftentimes a real 87, a Millennia preamp. Millennia is a very clean, solid state circuit preamplifier for microphones. I was using that with the 87 and a distressor, same thing, just to, handle the peaks if ever the guy starts to laugh or yell or something, at least it's a little bit controlled. And then in the box, classic stuff, compression, EQ, multiband, whatever.
Interesting. I actually have like a bit of I want to have a bit of a debate with you real quick here, because when I work in location audio, a lot of location audio guys, and I know it's different from voiceover, they say like they'll never EQ or they'll never compress a signal on their kit, because they would leave that to the production team, to like post production. They just want to get like
lazy, bro. That's lazy as shit, bro. Like, look, this is my opinion. A very strong opinion, though. A very strong opinion.
Go ahead.
People might not like this, but if you're getting paid to engineer a record, you better make sure that faders up sounds like a record. If you're not, whether you're doing it in the box or not, doesn't matter. But like, let's say in this situation, I'm getting hired to do a record as an engineer, and I decide to, I'm not going to compress. I'm not going to use too much gain. I'm not going to EQ. I'm going to leave it for the post-production guy. I'm going to leave it for the mixer. Bro, that's lazy as shit. Bro, that mixing engineer is going to hate your guts, because every track he's going to get is going to be out of phase, and it's going to be, just sound like ass. Like, whatever you feel in that moment. When I do a record, if I'm sitting down with an indie band and I'm about to track this record, I want whatever I'm hearing out of the speakers at that given moment to be like the final product. That's what I want. And that's my view on things. I think if you're getting hired as a recording engineer, that should be your goal. If you're recording just for the sake of getting it in Pro Tools and you don't want to fucking do anything, bro, that's lazy. That's lazy. Sorry.
Okay. No, it's totally a valid point, and I think it's good to.
I'm also very old school in my train of thought. I'm very old school, and that's Joe Ciccarelli that fucking taught me that. Because Joe Ciccarelli is, as soon as you get a microphone in front of something, you better make sure it sounds really good before it makes it to Pro Tools. And I like to think of myself as, same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we basically went over everything. I have the crescent here that we can talk about if you want. Other than that, we basically covered all of the questions. Is there anything big you wanted to bring up before we just the crescent?
We could talk about crescent. I'd like to maybe mention my socials at the end if you don't put it in the show notes.
Absolutely. We plug at the end. Yeah, at the end we'll do a plug.
Yeah, let me plug at the end real quick. But yeah, we can talk about crescent. I'm down for that.
Perfect. Let's talk about one of my favorite sessions when I was over at Planet was assisting the crescent. I think it's a beautiful thing to witness. What is the Crescent? Tell us about being an engineer for the project and everything.
Yeah, so Crescent started. It's the Crescent Montreal. they started with basically the owner or operator. I'm not sure if he's the owner, but he's the operator at least. His name is Hrag, and he's an insane guitar player. He's like a sick guitar player. He has a great Instagram following. He does videos weekly, whatever. And he decided to put on this event weekly or bi-monthly, like every couple weeks or at least once a month, depending how it goes, but at least once a month. Sorry, I have hiccups. And he wants to, basically he's inviting these artists to perform in studio live, where it's recorded but also streamed live on their YouTube channel. And so we've done a fair few of these, mostly jazz, because he's such a wicked guitar player. He's linked to all these jazz cats. He knows all these dudes. We have guys like Gilad Heckelson that came into the studio, who's an absolute legend in the jazz community. We have guys like Jim Doxis. We have Adrian Vidati. We have Louis Vincent. We have all these dudes that come in that are just slayers in the jazz community, and we do live sessions. I just put mics in front of them. They play a set of 4 songs. I record it, but I also stream it to Hrag, who's the owner and operator, and he streams it to the YouTube channel live. And it happens once, twice a month at the very least. And very dope. And we don't just do jazz. We do pop stuff. We do world music stuff. We do, hip hop sometimes, I think. Coming up anyways, hip hop. And it's all done at the studio here downstairs. It's live in studio in a real studio. It's not just like, in somebody's living room. It's like in a real place. These guys spent the money and the time to make it look good and sound good. And that's why it's so important to me that, it stays that way. It looks good, sounds good. I want it to continue. I love the Crescent. I love the guys. The music is fantastic. The artists are fantastic.
Fantastic. All right, Anthony.
Awesome.
You may ask our honorary question that we ask all of our guests at the end of every episode. And this is going to be an important question to answer, Jacob. We really want you to give us the real tea on this one. So go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah.
Hit me, baby. Hit me.
So yeah, like Jaian said, before concluding, we like to ask our guests a final question. And our final question to you is, what is your advice to people who want to get into the space of sound?
Yeah, good question. Be persistent. That's my biggest advice. Be persistent. The key to... So I'm a little bit biased because I've only been in the space of sound as a recording engineer, so I can't preach on anybody. But if you want to be a recording engineer and you want to get into a commercial studio, you need to be persistent as hell, man. You need to. If you don't get lucky on the first time bringing your CV or your resume to the studio that you want to work at, you got to try again every week. Bug the shit out of them. Annoy the guy. Just annoy the guy who's in charge of that. Just annoy him like crazy. And eventually he's going to say, okay, I need help. Because it's all about timing. I got lucky getting my job because my timing was perfect. I applied when somebody was already on his way out. So they needed a dude. And I had the education necessary, which is not, I wouldn't say it's a requirement. You don't need to go to school for audio. You can learn what you need to learn in studio. It's just harder. It's longer.
Right. Education never hurts.
Yeah, education never hurts. If you can spend the money to learn what you need to learn in school, do it. If you don't want to spend that money, you could do it in studio as an intern. It's just going to take longer. But anyways, all that to say, you have to be persistent. If you want to get into a studio and work as a recording engineer, you have to be ready to sacrifice the hours. You have to be ready to, reapply multiple times until they really need somebody. Because if you're the first name on the top of that pile when they need somebody, they're going to call you.
Yeah.
Because they don't care if you've been working as a freelance engineer for 4 years. I don't give a shit, man. As long as you show up and you have a good attitude, I don't care. You can learn Pro Tools while you're working here. You can learn how to engineer while you're interning here. It doesn't matter. I just want to know that you're a cool dude and I could spend 12 hours with you without hating you, and that you're committed. That's it. You have to be persistent, committed, and I would say bilingual if you want to work in Montreal.
In Montreal.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
For sure.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm reliving a day one Planet Studio vibes right now when I'm like just walking in and you're showing me around the studio and you're like, so are you bilingual? Yeah. Do you know Pro Tools? I will learn Pro Tools. Are you a fun guy? I will be. I want to be.
This is where the hotel is. Yeah. You can find the toilet paper over here, and the hotel. Yeah. That's basically the first day of Planet. Oh, you need toilet paper? It's down in the basement. You need markers? Well, you gotta go buy some. That's kind of the first first things you got to do as an intern, bro. You got to be at the service of the assistants. There's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
If you're an intern, you're trying to make the assistant's life better. If you're an assistant, you're trying to make the engineer's life better. If you're the engineer, you're trying to make the artist's life better. If you're the artist, you're trying to make the best damn music you can. So there's no, there's a hierarchy and you got to work towards it. And if you're like me, you get lucky where there's nobody around to be the intern or assistant or engineer. So you just got to do everything, and you learn what you need to learn in a short amount of time, like I did, because I had no choice.
Definitely. All right. Let's, where can people find you online, Jacob, if they want to hire you for mixes, for recording? What's your social media? What's your website? Please, everything will obviously be linked in the description, but please shout yourself out and plug away.
My Facebook, you can find me on Facebook, Jacob Lacroix-Cardinal, my full government name on Facebook. On Instagram, you can find me at Jacob Cardinal Music. My website is www.jacobcardinal.com. And that's it. If you have any questions, you want to talk to me, just reach out by email, by DM, whatever. I'm free. I'm good. Whatever you have, question-wise, just shoot it over. I'm down. I will help anybody and everybody.
Yes, I can attest to that. Jacob is a very helpful individual and very easy to talk to. So you're definitely in good hands and a good person to talk to. Great resource. Anthony, where can people find you online if they want to see your DJing, your music, your electroacoustic compositions? Where are you at, bro?
All right. Yeah, thanks, man. So for me, you can find me on Instagram as at akachi.audio. So that's ACACI.audio. And on Spotify, you can find me as Akachi, so ACACI. That's it for me. What about you, Jaian?
Fantastic. We'll start with the podcast. You probably should have done that. But Soundspace is available on all platforms, so please go give us a 5-star review. Go follow us on social media. All the links will be in the description on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Everything will be there. We would really appreciate the support as we are starting out this new adventure. We hope you enjoy these episodes. For myself, I am at JaianMusic on social media. I have a YouTube channel where I compose anime covers, where I podcast about anime, where I make rap music and electroacoustic music with a variety of different projects. And that is youtube.com/JaianMusic. You can also find all of my music over on Spotify. Just type in JaianMusic. All of that will be linked in the description as well. So for myself, Anthony, and Jacob, this has been another episode of Soundspace. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Cheese.
We're just going to cut out the whole podcast.
Yeah. By accident. Because Jaian sucks at editing. No, I'm just kidding.
That's staying in there.
That's staying.